Hi everyone, I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today to Adaptable. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and I'm glad to have you here. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is so fascinating to me, and if I had all the time in the world, I would become a doctorate in pain management and how our body works, related to the way our brain fires and wires data and how our body receives that data when it comes to pain. And the reason I say that is because I've been so fortunate to see some of the most beautiful healing in people when it comes to physical illness as an EMDR therapist. So today we're going to dig in a little bit more deeply to EMDR and pain management, which a lot of people, including EMDR therapists, are not super familiar with how it works and how to use it. I've been really fortunate to be able to attend a lot of advanced trainings that dig into this topic in such a more robust way. And although I don't fully understand how everything works, I'm going to do my best to give it some justice and share with you as best as I can. But I also have a lot of personal experiences with clients where they have become free from physical pain and physical symptoms related to their pain, whether it was emotional pain that's stored in the body, which happens because trauma is stored at a cellular level, but also pain that's related to physical injury. I've had several physical therapists or people from pain doctors send us clients here at Infinite Healing and Wellness, and we've been able to alleviate certain pain experiences in people. Now, the initial learning about EMDR and pain started with phantom limb pain. And so there's a lot of research related to the pain that exists, like, for example, in your hand, if you've lost your arm, and people who have lost an arm have said that's like the worst pain they've ever experienced, and the hand is gone. They've said that's the worst pain they've ever experienced. And, while the hand is gone due to amputation or an injury, they still experience excruciating pain in the hand. So in the absence of something even existing, the brain is firing like there's something bad going on there. I've seen huge improvements in people who have had migraines, chronic back pain, and neck pain. And so hopefully if any of this resonates, or even ongoing pain, for example, if you have had an injury happen and the doctors have said, there's nothing further we can do, but you are still experiencing pain, we're going to dig in a little bit more deeply as to why that happens and how EMDR can really help. So it's kind of a perplexing phenomenon, but I'm going to dig in first to the phantom limb pain part because that's where the initial research started. So researchers and therapists alike tend to be puzzled by this, but when you think about EMDR was originally developed for trauma-related disorders, and it's really emerged as such a promising treatment for phantom limb pain especially, but in many, many other physical issues that I previously discussed, as well as much, much more that I can't even touch in this episode. So we're going to talk about theoretical foundations, we're going to talk about clinical evidence, and then, of course, practical implications of using EMDR to alleviate various types of pain. So one theory that really fascinates me that we're going to explore is how EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, can influence the way pain gates function. So there's something called the pain gate theory that was proposed by Melzek and Wall, and it was in 1965. And this theory suggests that pain perception is modulated by a gate or a mechanism in the spinal cord. And this gate can either allow or block pain signals from reaching the brain. So when the gates open, pain signals flood through, intensifying a perception of pain. Now, I use the word perception because once that changes, we have a different relationship with pain. So conversely, when the gate's closed, there's fewer pain signals that reach the brain, which leads to a reduced pain perception. So how does this work? So during EMDR sessions, we use bilateral stimulation, such as eye movements or tapping. And this bilateral stimulation engages both the hemispheres of our brain simultaneously. And it's believed that this process can impact the pain gateways in several ways. So one is distraction and reorientation. So the bilateral stimulation diverts our attention away from pain sensations And by focusing on the eye movements or the tapping, the brain reorients its processing, which reduces the intensity of pain signals. The other piece of it is neuroplasticity and memory reprocessing. So EMDR aims to reprocess traumatic memories and associated emotions that are all stored cellularly. And as the memories are reprocessed, neural circuits adapt and change. So when you look at brain scans, in fact, we just had a client send us pre and post brain scans from the Amen Clinic, which is honestly such a gift. If you can get brain scans from the Amen Clinic, I highly recommend, especially if you can get them early on in EMDR treatment, because you could see pre-EMDR what your brain looks like and post-EMDR what your brain looks like. And it's just so fascinating and so validating that we really do help to change the way the brain looks. And that plasticity can potentially alter pain pathways, which affects how pain signals are transmitted and also perceived by the brain. And so when someone says, you can't heal my pain, I don't argue. I say, you know what, you're right. First of all, I can't heal you. Your body, your brain, that's what's beautiful. That's what's doing all the work. I just get to be the lucky person to ride alongside you while this is going on. But we can change your relationship with the pain. We can change how your brain perceives the pain and ultimately decreasing the intensity of those signals. EMDR bilateral stimulation also is it induces a reduction in stress or relaxation response. So it promotes relaxation, it reduces stress, and lower stress levels may indirectly influence pain gateways, which allows for better pain management. So while the exact mechanisms are still being studied, EMDR's impact on pain perception likely involves a combination of distraction, neural plasticity, stress reduction, and of course, as research continues, we get a deeper understanding and insight into how exactly EMDR interacts with our pain processing, but it's really fascinating. So I'm going to dig in a little more deeply to understanding specifically like phantom limb pain, and this is, like I said before, this is a good example to describe what we think is going on. So phantom limb pain happens due to neural reorganization after limb loss. So like I said before, if I lost my arm due to a car accident, there's neural reorganization and the brain is changing the way the data is firing based on its understanding and relationship to the arm and the hand. Of course, it's tied together with the accident. The emotional experience. How were you treated at the doctor's office? What was the recovery like? What was the removal of the limb surgery like? How did that hit you from a place of what am I no longer going to be able to do as a person who's now disabled due to the loss of an arm? All of those emotional components of limb loss are part of how memory stores the information. So the brain's representation of this missing limb remains active and it leads to sensations of pain, tingling, discomfort. And what we recognize is that EMDR effectively targets these maladaptive neural patterns and reorganizes the way the maladaptively stored information lives in our body. And so even though we can't obviously make your hand come back, what we know is we can change the way the brain is firing that data so that you no longer have to have pain associated with that loss. Of course, there's the emotional experience of having to relearn how to do things without the arm. And all of that, of course, is very traumatic, but we can change the way the physical sensation based on the way the brain fires data. So just a little bit of background on EMDR therapy. It's the AIP model that EMDR is based from. Dr. Francine Shapiro came up with this. It's the adaptive information processing model, and it posits that trauma memories are stored in a dysfunctional manner, and it prevents natural healing to occur. We reprocess the way the memories are stored. It allows adaptive resolution and thus symptom reduction in whatever it is that's going on. So I want to talk to you a little bit about a case study that was done on EMDR and phantom limb pain by Schneider et al. For a 38-year-old man who had severe phantom limb pain. He received EMDR treatment, and despite prior rehabilitation, opiate medication, his pain persisted. And after just 9 EMDR sessions, his phantom limb pain vanished completely, and he no longer even needed the medication. And those effects were sustained at an 18-month follow-up. So it's not even in question whether or not this works. Personally, I've gotten to see it in so many experiences as well with my own clients. So I want to talk, so not everybody loses a limb, but they might have pain for many other reasons. So now I'm going to dig into those topics so that it might be more applicable to you. So if you have migraines, chronic back pain, neck pain, all kinds of things, those are often associated with emotional experiences, not always, but sometimes. And when we can address the experiences along with the way the brain is firing protective mechanisms in the body to our muscles, we can alleviate a lot of pain. So let's talk about migraines. There's a lot of promise in reducing migraine frequency and severity with EMDR therapy. We target emotional distress related to the migraines. We look at what happened during the time when you started getting migraines. So thinking about a client where they said, I get migraines, but I've always had them since I was 16 when I started my period, or let's say 14. 16 is pretty old to start a period, but 14 years old when I started my period, and it's just the hormones. So I'll get more curious and I'll say, what else was going on when you were 14? And they might say, well, that's also when my parents got divorced and my dad lost his job. But, it's the hormones. And so when we go back to the time when the migraines originated and we reprocess the emotional experiences and reduce the presenting triggers around experiences of powerlessness and helplessness, the body is not protecting. It doesn't show up in a way that's like preemptive that says, oh, here we go again. And so migraines reduce, the tensing process reduces, the outcome of migraines reduces. And what we see, which is so beautiful, is we can now also address what we call a secondary loss of having migraines, which is all the things that I had to miss because I had a migraine. And I have to learn new ways to try to get my needs met so we can address some of those pieces. But something like that can really be reduced. And it's so powerful and beautiful because it takes away the triggers and the memories that are associated with the headaches, which is so pervasive with someone who suffered migraines. Now, if you have a medical situation that is causing your migraines, we of course want you to address that with medical doctors and address the treatment of that. But sometimes people have migraines and they don't have any physical or a medical explanation for those. And so this is a good experience or a good reason to search for an EMDR therapist to work on migraine reduction. And even if you do have a medical reason, we can also change the way the pain relates in your brain, and your brain relates to that data if you get migraines. And so you'll have better management overall when you have migraines, or you'll have reduction of migraine experiences. So now let's talk about chronic back pain or any other kind of chronic pain. There's really psychological components like stress, anxiety, and oftentimes unresolved trauma related to these experiences in our body. Our body is holding information related to associated experiences. So EMDR therapy can ease chronic pain symptoms and reframe the negative beliefs around those, improves energy, improves mood, and ultimately improves the way we can live in the world with our physical experiences. And so by addressing the emotional distress related to the back pain, EMDR contributes to pain reduction and overall, like I said, improved quality of life. The same thing goes for neck pain. Like any other chronic condition, it can be influenced by emotional factors. Think about it. If you're someone who gets chronic neck pain and then you can't go on the boat ride with your kids, or you can't go play ball in the backyard like you usually do on a Tuesday afternoon, it feels sad. It feels disappointing. We feel regret and all these things. We might even feel guilt that, our neck pain is affecting our relationship with one of our kids because we can't go and do things we would have otherwise normally done. And so being able to reprocess the distressing memories associated with an experience, especially namely related to like neck pain, can reduce the intensity. So the bilateral stimulation used in EMDR again impacts the pain gateways, which can lead to relief. And many other kinds of pains can be addressed positively as well and affected positively. I want to give you another example of someone I worked with that had physical pain. There was a physical injury that was associated with it, and he believed that the injury was just medical and that there was just too darn much damage done to his shoulder, and that it was never going to be better. And so, just giving you a little bit of background, he's a little boy. He breaks his collarbone. There's some trauma associated with that, related to how he was treated. Then he's a teenager and he's sent to rehab due to some drug use and distress, intolerance in his family system. And in rehab, he's in a fight where he suffers another injury to his shoulder. And then later, he ends up having a motorcycle accident where his arm suffered some nerve damage and some issues due to the way he landed in the motorcycle accident. And so through EMDR therapy, and this is so fascinating because, a therapist who's not paying attention or doesn't want to zero in on what's happening may miss this. But, he's moving around in the therapy session and, a therapist says to him, "What's going on with your shoulder?" He says, "Oh, nothing. Shoulder always hurts like this. I've had a lot of physical damage and injuries to it. It's just kind of luck of the draw. It's just kind of always hurts." And therapist digs in and says, "Hey, let's talk a little bit about the shoulder and the story of the shoulder and what happened to the shoulder throughout your life." And through those series of events and reprocessing with EMDR therapy, the trauma associated with those events, there's no more pain in the shoulder. And even though there's physical injury and history of reasons for the shoulder to hurt, when the brain can fire and wire, you know what? Those events are over. I don't need to tense up. I don't need to tighten up anymore. The distress is over. I'm safe now. My shoulder did a good job protecting me. My body did a good job protecting me. I don't have to experience the reminders of all of those physical injuries anymore in my shoulder. And so I just want to plant those seeds that if you're dealing with certain kinds of pain, it's really fascinating to see the way the brain relates with pain response, and recognizing that EMDR therapy can really help you to change the way your brain fires data related to pain. Of course, we don't want to omit healthcare professionals, medical doctors, to help us figure out our personal treatment plans. But we want to make sure you know that there is hope, that EMDR therapy can really change the way we relate with our pain. And although we can't heal injuries, we can change the way our body responds and reacts to pain sensors. There's so much more that we have to learn and research related to this topic, but I personally have seen such good results in so many clients that I just have to share this with people so that you know there is hope and there is change. I hope that you found this podcast helpful. I wish you the very best in your journey of finding reduction in pain. Make sure you reach out in the comments below if you've experienced some resolution related to pain, or if you'd like some support in finding a therapist in your area. So until we meet again, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.